I read a lot of books this week. So hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am back with another weekly wrap-up. I don't do monthly wrap-ups because they take too long to film. I also forget all the books that I'm reading and it's just a mess. So here's my weekly wrap-up for this week. I don't know the specific week that I have, so I'll put it in the title below so we all know our date. So the first book that I want to talk about is Passion on Park Avenue by Lauren Lane, and this book was something that I kind of struggled with on thinking, how do I present this book to you guys, because this book is a little hard to explain. It's about three girls that end up meeting each other at a funeral, and the funeral is their boyfriend's funeral, and yes, so they're all dating the same guy. Well, actually one of them is actually married to the dead and the deceased person before when he was alive, and they all make a pact, and it's called the Central Park Pact because they make a pact at Central Park in New York City, and they make a pact about where they will help each other find a man who is not a complete asshole. And this story follows the story of Naomi Powell, and Naomi Powell grew up in an environment that is similar to our environment or worse than our environment. She grew up in poverty. She grew up with a single mother who was a she was like a housemaid. Her mom lived a scandalous life. She actually was a part of an affair with the owner of the house, and it got really messy, and Naomi kind of just lived through that life where she had to hustle and she had to grind in order to make herself successful, and successful is what she did. She created this billion-dollar brand that is for accessories and a subscription box purchase and something like that, and she gets the opportunity to move back into the same apartment she grew up in when her mom was taking care of the house, and there she fell in love with the boy that always teased her and always made fun of her, but he was also really cruel to her, so she quickly didn't like him, and they had this falling out because of the situation, and then she meets him again. So this story follows that romance, and I really liked the story. It was very angsty. It was also very sweet, and it was also very fluffy, and I really liked Oliver. Oliver is the main male character, and Oliver is like my book boyfriend. I don't know, he's just like a nerd. He's an architect, and he wears glasses, and he's smart, and he plays jigsaw puzzles, and he takes care of his father who is has dementia and Alzheimer's, and I'm just like, oh my god, I love this so much, and I just love the story. It definitely almost brought me to tears because of how real this romance was, so definitely pick up this book if you haven't yet already. So the second book that I want to talk about is The Memory Thief by Laura Manzi, and I actually got an advanced reader's copy from HarperCollins Canada. This book actually comes out on October 1st, 2019, so if you guys are interested in this book, definitely check it out. This book is a complicated story. It's a YA fantasy novel, and the reason why I say it's complicated because, like, the world building was not done great. I personally didn't like this book. If you guys should know, or if you guys want to know, I DNF'd this book. I stopped around 30% in because I was completely clueless. I didn't know what was happening anymore. There was a lot of characters and creatures and status quos that were built inside the story, but they never told you it. Like, you know, like how like usually they kind of explain what the land is important for or what the special powers of a certain type of soldier is in a fantasy novel or something like that, alongside with the introduction. So like when they introduce those characters, you'll kind of know what's going on. Well, this one they didn't. This one they just kind of expected you to know. So for example, there was like a character called a Shadow, and you're supposed to know the Shadow's abilities right off the top of your head. So Lauren did a very disservice to us because I was completely clueless. What they did in the arc, and I'm sure in the final copy they're going to correct this, is that they gave you the glossary and like the maps at the back. So obviously I didn't know until I had to flip to the back when I was about to give up, and then I like read it, and then I realized that most of her characters are like similar to each other, but there's just slightly something different, and it was really frustrating and annoying, so I DNF'd this book, but I still gave it 2 out of 5 stars for the effort. The next book that I want to talk about is The Secretary by Renee Knight. Now, I'm really big into thrillers and psychological novels right now because it is getting into the fall season. It might not seem like fall in Toronto right now because we're suffering through a heat wave for the last like 4 days or 3 days, and it's really killing me, and that is why I'm glossy right now in my room. But the secretary follows the main idea that the secretary knows everything about the person that they are serving, and that their managers or their boss, they know everything because they plan the schedules, they know what they likes and don't likes and things like that. I mean, if you keep your friends close, you got to keep your enemies closer, and that's exactly what the secretary is. They're supposed to be loyal to you, but what happens when your boss is manipulative and she is just wrong in every sense, then obviously you're going to have someone like the secretary who kind of goes and finds your weaknesses and brings you down. So this is exactly what the book is about. I enjoyed this book up until a certain point. The writing was very confusing, so if you guys are planning to read this book, definitely I recommend you read this book if you have the right mindset, because this book is told in a present style. It kind of goes into the past and then it kind of goes into the future, and then you're just kind of like confused about like what happened and what didn't happen yet. This book is supposed to be shocking, and I know I read a lot of reviews on Goodreads where people said that the ending wasn't as shocking or it just didn't make sense. I didn't really like it, so I gave this an average 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 2.5 out of 5 stars. So the last completed book that I read is The Escape Room by Megan Golden, and this book was sent to me by St. Martin's Press, and I absolutely adored this novel. St. Martin's Press sent me a bunch of books, and at first I was kind of hesitant in reading them because they're not normally the genres that I read, but I absolutely love this one, and thus far, I will probably be reading more and more of the psychological and thriller genre. The Escape Room follows 4 different characters. There are 4 very successful bankers working at a investment firm in New York City on Wall Street. They make millions of dollars, they make hundreds and thousands of dollars in bonuses and different things like that, and they're really intelligent, really smart. But the idea plays that these Wall Street bankers didn't come to the top without climbing on some dead bodies and climbing on other people to get to the top. And so when they receive an HR invitation to do a team building experiment, and they enter an elevator and they think that like they're heading up to an escape room, and the elevator stops, and then that becomes the escape room, that's when they all start freaking out. And especially after the 1 hour limit, or the 1 hour supposed limit, and they're just stuck in there for like a whole entire night and a half. And this book really builds on like different characters. You know all their stories, and it was just so interesting to see how they got here and how they are evil and which one is the most evilest one of all. And it's also told in 2 different perspectives, so you get to see what's happening inside the elevator, but you're also learning about the backstory of the other main character, and it's just wonderful. I couldn't put this book down, although I did take 2 days to read this book, so yes, I did put the book down, only because it got really dark and creepy, and it was just very like messing up my mind. It kind of put me in a weird funky mood where I was kind of depressed that a lot of people were thinking this way and had to like uphold their appearances in a certain way. I don't know, but in the end I gave this around, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars. And my friend Gabby, or Gabby from YouTube, she actually has this book, and when I started reading this book, I told her on Instagram stories that she had to read this book, and she was like, I have a copy and I'm definitely gonna pick it up in October. So I can't wait to see her thoughts on this novel and to see if we have similar reading tastes. So the last book that I want to talk about is the second book in the Central Pack series. This book was sent to me from Simon Schuster, and it's an ARC. This book was actually released on September 17th, 2019, so it's already out, and sadly I did not finish it in time before the publication date, but that happens, life happens. Forgive me, Simon Schuster. But this one follows our other character, Claire. Now, Claire is the one character that was actually married to the husband before he died, and she is left with this like shell of herself where she doesn't know why her husband cheated on her, and she thinks that she is so boring, and she must be something's wrong with her in order for her husband to cheat on her. So she has a lot of self-doubt. She's doing a home renovation project where she is renovating her apartment and her kitchen, and she hires a contractor named Scott. And Scott is a very stubborn man. He's very grouchy, he's very grumpy, and he's very cold, and he and Claire kind of have this weird working relationship together. I actually didn't finish this book yet. I'm like almost halfway through, but this book so far hasn't been captivating me as much as the first book in the series. The first book in the series took me some time to get into the story too as well, but this one's taking a little bit longer, and I'm getting a little bit more worried. I don't see, or or I don't feel the attraction between our two main characters. So now I don't really know what to expect. But also my friend Tina, she actually read this book, and she read the first book and she loved it, and now she has the third book and it's the ARC version. So I'm excited for her to see if she enjoys everything, and then maybe I can enjoy it too. But this book I did not finish yet, and I'm planning to finish along this week, so hopefully I can finish it before my trip to Korea. So that is it for all the books that I finished or started to read this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you picked up some reads to add to your TBR as well. And if you guys have any books that you read this week that you guys really enjoyed, definitely give me a recommendation in the comments down below. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Can't let you go. I can't let you go, no. 우리 운명적 한 번을 get you.